what can you tell us about that whole scenario? And I didn't even know really you were involved with that.
Yeah, I was. There wasn't any money in wrestling. It was just everybody was a bunch of poor, broke wrestlers trying to survive and win that Olympic gold. And I was in that same case. I was already on a team, New York Athletic Club. They were my sponsor. They flew me to tournaments and stuff. But John DuPont started his club, and the rumor is everybody was getting like $1,500 a month. And that was a lot of money to a wrestler. That was a lot of money. That would have helped out. That would have helped out drastically. But he wouldn't let me on the team because, well, I felt obligated to New York Athletic Club. But at the same time, I told him, look, man, I need this money to eat. And so I think they understood. But John DuPont wouldn't let me on the team because one of my main rivals, Dan Chade, was their 220 pounder at the time. So he was one of the first guys on Team Foxcatcher. So DuPont was loyal to him, and he wouldn't let me on the team because we were big time rivals, both going for the Olympics. But then I made the world team, and I had beaten Dan Chade. I made the world team, and John DuPont wants to be the best. So he opened his arms and he welcomed me on. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was, he was a creepy dude. He was extremely, extremely creepy. I mean, ugly, weirdo, just scary, man. It's hard to, and he didn't like the fact that, because you got nervous around him because he was so rich and because he was so creepy. So he didn't like that. He didn't like when he could tell you're nervous and stuff. So that's why he liked Dave Schultz so much, because Dave Schultz wasn't intimidated by him at all. So they had normal conversations. But me, I just was, kind of in awe of this guy. And I stayed when I made the world team, I got to stay in what they call the big house. His house was called the big house on the farm. Me and Kevin Jackson, we both got the room in there. And that was beautiful, man. Everything for a wrestler who had nothing, all of a sudden we got everything we want right at the tip of our hands. Open the fridge. The fridge was stocked full of great food. And it was just nice, man. I felt important, at the time. But obviously, that turned out to be one of the saddest moments in all of wrestling's history, when this guy, he was out of his mind. I mean, he was seeing demons. He was doing cocaine. He was drinking a lot. We didn't know these things. He's pretty sneaky with it. He hit it pretty well. We really didn't know he was drinking all the time and doing the coke. It's pretty surprising that he hit it so well. And he had the demons, man. He was talking about the house moving, and one day all of a sudden he got rid of every piece of equipment in the Foxcatchers, every piece of equipment that had a clock on it. He got all paranoid about clocks. For some reason, he was paranoid that clocks were evil. So every treadmill or every piece of equipment that had a clock on it, he threw them out. Just out of nowhere. Stuff like this would happen all the time.
Wait, Mark, wait, I don't mean to interrupt, but would he have like a crew of people that he would rely on to just, kind of comply with this crazy behavior? Was it the other wrestlers that you guys were in charge of throwing his stuff away? Or did he have like on-site ground crew to get rid of clocks one day?
Well, he was a loner, man. He had a secretary that did everything for him. And when he wanted something done, it's not that hard to get it done when you're worth fucking $1 billion, so we didn't have a big crew on there, but there were 16 houses on the farm, and they were all beat up and stuff, but wrestlers getting to live there for free. And the facility he built, a $2, $3, $4 million facility, was like state of the art. We wrestlers just didn't see nothing like this. So it was kind of like everybody was jealous, but he did show a lot of signs of being really, really creepy and really potentially dangerous. He had pulled a gun on the guy I was telling you about, Dan Chade, my rival. he had pulled a shotgun on him one time because he brought a girl onto the farm. You weren't allowed to have any girls on the farm. He didn't like girls. DuPont didn't like girls, even though his secretary was a girl. He liked her, but he told Shade, and Shade took off, and so that was the big sign. But unfortunately, nobody did anything because wrestling's a poor sport, and he was donating. He was keeping wrestling alive, so they stuck with him, and then he lost his mind. He thought Dave Schultz was out to get him. For some reason, he started getting these creepy feelings in his head that he thought Dave Schultz was out to get him for some reason. One of the reasons, I have no idea why, but he just felt like Dave Schultz was out to get him. And next thing you know, he was a bona fide marksman with the gun. I mean, he could hit you from a mile away. And he decided, for some reason, he just lost it and decided to pull his trigger on one of everybody's most favorite wrestlers in the history of wrestling. Dave Schultz was loved by everybody. I love the guy. He was a mentor to me. He showed me so much. He was on a couple world teams. We went to Russia together. Me and Dave Schultz went to Russia together, and we went to Russia, and they loved him in Russia because he learned to speak the language, and he actually had somebody. Wow. He wrestled a Russian in the finals of the Tbilisi, which at the time was the biggest tournament of any. It was bigger and harder to win than the Olympics because you got 35 Russians in there, and you got the Americans in there. But it is only 13 Americans that ever won the tournament. But Dave Schultz, at the age of 36, he's in the finals with a young Russian guy, and the fans were rooting for him over their own guy. They were rooting for him, cheering for him, and Dave Schultz had blew out his shoulder in the semifinals, so he's basically out there wrestling with one arm. So there was no action. It was 0-0 after 5 minutes, and at the time, the rules were somebody has to be declared the winner. They declared the Russian the winner, but the fans went nuts, man. They started booing, they started throwing shit onto the mats, throwing oranges, throwing fucking whatever small coins, although I can't believe they were throwing coins because they were so poor. I don't know where it must have been less than a penny or something, because they were throwing shit and the crowd was going nuts. They weren't having it. And so next thing you know, they could sense that there was going to be a riot that broke out if they declared the Russian the winner. So they restarted the match. They went into overtime. They went a couple minutes into overtime. Nobody could score because Schultz, this is not typical Schultz. He don't go 0-0. This guy's a score machine. But because of the bad shoulder, he really was waiting for the other guy to try something. The other guy was being very cautious, but he was pushing the pace, though. So they brought them together, and the crowd started booing again. And they ended up raising both guys' arms. This has never happened in the history of wrestling ever. They raised both guys' arms and declared both of them champions just to keep the crowd at peace. But that Russian trip, I was a young boy. I was 27, just out of college, and I went on that trip, and we was there for 21 days. They didn't have no fucking heat, and I'm not exaggerating when I say they didn't have no heat. You could see your breath in the arena. They heated the arena with the fans. They heated the arena with the fans, and then we got to the hotel room, and I'm like, just praying for some heat, and there was no heat in the hotel room. So I was a young boy, but turned me into a man. You know what I mean? I was there for 21 days, but that really, really fast forwarded me turning into a man growing up, because I came back a different person. I had lost 20 pounds because they just literally did not have any food. They did not have any food, so I didn't even have to cut weight to make weight, because I was already on weight, because I took a bunch of protein powder with me, thank God. But I finished that up, and I took a bunch of beef jerkies with me, and everybody was my best friend for about a couple of days, because everybody wanted to come into my room and get the beef jerky. And oh hell, there's Kenny Monday. Here you go. John Smith, here you go. You know, everybody, next thing it was gone. And I went down and I didn't recognize anything that was on the plate of food. And I didn't recognize it. And I would eat the hell out of it today because I'm a different man. But back then it just scared me, man. I didn't know what it was. And I just couldn't eat it. So I ended up losing 20 pounds. I came back with ice bags all over my body because it was a rough trip, man.
Now, Mark, it's funny. Like, people don't really get that sometimes. I think check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.